Ever wonder how our world got so interconnected, so dominated by massive corporations and global finance? It's a story of power, money, and control, a story that defines our modern era. Let's unpack the economic essence of what we call imperialism, which is really monopoly capitalism. This isn't just some dusty historical term. It's the very system that shapes our lives today. Think about it. Monopoly isn't just a board game. It's the end game of free competition. When companies get big enough, they stop competing and start dominating. This shift from competition to monopoly marks a huge transition to a new kind of economic order. There are 4 key ways this happened, 4 pillars that hold up the whole structure. First, monopolies grew from the sheer scale of production. As factories got bigger and more efficient, a few giants emerged in each industry. These became the cartels, syndicates, and trusts you hear about. By the start of the 20th century, these behemoths were already running the show in the most advanced countries. Even in Great Britain, famous for its free trade, the trend was unstoppable. Big fish eat little fish, and eventually, only a few giants are left swimming in the pond. Second, these new monopolies got a voracious appetite for raw materials. To control an industry like steel or coal, you have to control the source. So, they scrambled to seize the world's most important mines and resource deposits. This didn't just make big capital more powerful. It created a massive conflict between the industries that were part of the club and those that were left out in the cold. It was a global grab for the planet's building blocks. Third, monopoly rose from the banks. Banks transformed from simple middlemen into the absolute rulers of finance capital. In every major capitalist nation, a tiny handful of banks, maybe 3 to 5, merged their power with industrial giants. They created a personal link-up, concentrating the control of billions upon billions of dollars. This created a financial oligarchy, a small group of super-rich individuals whose web of influence covers every single economic and political institution. Nothing escapes their network of control. Fourth, and finally, monopoly supercharged colonial policy. The old reasons for having colonies were still there, but finance capital added a whole new set of motives. They needed places to export capital, new markets for profitable deals, and exclusive access to resources. They were hungry for economic territory. Back in 1876, when European powers controlled only 1/10 of Africa, colonization could be a bit of a furrow. But by 1900, when 9/10 of Africa was carved up and the whole world was divided, the game changed. It became an era of monopoly possession, leading to an intense, brutal struggle to redivide the world. Now, it's no secret that this system has intensified all the problems of capitalism. We see it in the rising cost of living and the sheer power that cartels wield over us. This constant tension is the engine of our modern history, a history that began when global finance capital declared its final victory. This system has some very distinct features. Monopolies, rule by a rich few, a drive for domination instead of freedom, and the exploitation of smaller nations by a handful of powerful ones. These traits lead us to define this stage as parasitic or decaying capitalism. One of the most striking tendencies is the rise of the rentier state or usurer state. Here, the ruling class increasingly lives not by producing but by exporting capital and just clipping coupons, living off interest and returns from investments abroad. But here's a crucial point. This decay doesn't mean capitalism stops growing. In fact, on the whole, capitalism is growing faster than ever before, but this growth is incredibly uneven. It's a paradox. The very countries richest in capital, like Britain, began to show signs of decay, while others shot forward. Take Germany after 1870. Its economic development was breathtaking. One writer compared the progress from 1848 to 1872, an old mail coach, while the period from 1870 to 1905 was like a modern automobile, speeding so fast it's a danger to everyone. This rapidly growing finance capital was then eager to grab colonies, even if it meant taking them by force from other rich nations. And then there's the United States. In recent decades, its economic development has been even faster than Germany's. And because of this rapid growth, the parasitic features of American capitalism have become particularly obvious. Interestingly, the political differences between, say, a Republican American ruling class and a monarchist German one start to fade away. Why? Because in the age of imperialism, they all share these parasitic traits. So, how does this system maintain itself? High monopoly profits make it possible for capitalists to bribe certain sections of the working class. They can offer a minority of workers better pay and conditions, winning them over to their side against other workers. This creates a link between imperialism and what we call opportunism, a tendency within the working class movement to abandon long-term goals for short-term gains. This was first seen very clearly in Great Britain, which experienced imperialism's effects earlier than anyone else. Some people try to downplay this connection. They might say, well, the cause would be hopeless if it were the best-paid workers who were opportunistic, but this is a dangerous kind of optimism. It's an optimism that serves to protect and hide opportunism. The rapid and ugly growth of opportunism doesn't mean it will last forever. Think of it like a painful abscess on a healthy body. Its rapid growth only means it will burst sooner, and the body can heal. The most dangerous people are those who refuse to see that any fight against imperialism is a total sham, unless it is also a fight against opportunism. So, when we look at the economic core of imperialism, we have to see it as capitalism in transition, or, to be more precise, as dying capitalism. It's fascinating that even mainstream economists use words like interlocking to describe the modern economy. They see that banks are outgrowing the sphere of purely private business. One such economist even declared that the Marxist prophecy of socialization hasn't come true. But what does this word interlocking really mean? It just describes a surface-level chaos. It's like counting the individual trees but completely missing the forest. It shows an observer who is overwhelmed by raw data and can't grasp its deeper meaning. Sure, ownership of shares and property seems to interlock in a haphazard way, but underneath it all, the very social relations of production are changing. Think about it. A giant corporation organizes the supply of raw materials for tens of millions of people, based on precise calculations. It transports these materials thousands of miles. A single center directs every stage of production, from raw material to finished product. Then, it distributes these products to hundreds of millions of consumers according to a single plan, like the American Oil Trust marketing oil across the world. When you see this, it becomes clear that this is the socialization of production, not just interlocking. The old shell of private property and private economic relations no longer fits its contents. It's a shell that is bound to decay, and, eventually, it will inevitably be removed. Even a fan of German imperialism, Schulz-Gavernetz, recognized this trend. He wrote that if the management of German banks was in the hands of a dozen men, their work would be more significant for the public good than most government ministers. He imagined a future where all the nation's capital is united in banks, and the banks are combined into cartels. This, he said, would fulfill the forecast of the great thinker Saint-Simon, who predicted that the anarchy of production would be replaced by organization. Production would be regulated by a central committee for the benefit of all society. This is presented as a refutation of Marx, but it's actually a step backward, from Marx's precise, scientific analysis to the guesswork of a genius, but guesswork nonetheless. What we are witnessing is not just interlocking but a profound transformation of the very basis of our society. The old system is decaying, and something new is struggling to be born from within its shell. Understanding this process is the key to understanding our world and our place in it. Thank you so much for watching. If this video opened your eyes to the forces shaping our world, please hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives, and share this with anyone who wants to look behind the curtain of the global economy. See you in the next one.